Hey, um, this one's a tough one to talk about. I've only ever really mentioned what I'm about to talk about to like a few people that bring up that they lost like a brother or a relative, or if we're on the subject of a certain drug, I'll bring it up, but I don't really talk about it too often. Um, I lost my brother and my one of my best friends to heroin. Um, Sucks, man. I think I was 16 when I lost my brother. Just saying that it's all going on 20 years ago. Unbelievable. I wanted to make this video to maybe show some relatable content to some people that have lost loved ones to this stuff. Or maybe to deter somebody from using it, because I know this definitely deterred me at a young age. My brother was having a house party, and yeah, he overdosed, and he was sort of left like that because people don't want to get in trouble by association. But I'm not going to go into any more. But yeah, the phone call was just horrendous. My sister called me, and like hearing, so and so is dead. I've been through this a couple times in my life, like getting that phone call about certain individuals, and it's horrendous every time because your brain just can't rationalize that like the person's gone, and you're trying to think like, of all these situations, like you'll never see them again, and your brain just can't fathom that. Like, makes you sick to your stomach. Like, I was dry heaving and stuff like that. And then I just remember sitting watching time go by for, I don't even remember the time. It must have been 6 p.m. 5, I don't even know. Sitting there till like 9, 10 at night, 4 or 5 hours straight, sitting there watching the time go by. You just feel numb, and you never like truly get over it. You just, things get better in time, right? Like, it still affects me to this day when I think about these people, you know, try to block it out and not really think about it. But when you do it, it's tough. It'll always be tough. And then my best friend overdosed when we were 21. 21, I was 22, he was 21, around that age. Been 13, 14 years since that's happened. Yeah, about 13 years. It's crazy reflecting back on these things because the time just, it doesn't feel like it's been that long. It feels like a month ago, you know what I mean? But he went, and I guess his was more intentional. It was like an intentional OD. And he went to a warehouse we used to mess around in as kids. Like, we go up in there and, do whatever. We'd sneak out, go up into that warehouse, and that's where he went and overdosed. That bothers me to this day. That entire warehouse has since been torn down. There's just nothing there. And every time I go, like, when I think about it, when I go by there, I always get depressed. You know? And the last couple of months of his life, I didn't really even have contact with him. I know our other good buddy did, but I don't think he really reached out to anybody when he went and did it. That was a text I got. That wasn't a phone call. That was horrendous. Remember, I was working third shift and laying in bed in the morning, and I got that text. It was just horrendous. I mean, the last year or two of his life was a little rough, but he was incarcerated. He got left out, and I guess he was doing good. And then I don't know what exactly happened, but it sent him over the edge, and he went and it was basically suicide when it comes down to it. I guess he left a note and everything. And then 4 years later, I dated a girl that ended up using, but I was in that relationship way too long. That's a whole other story. I may make a video about that. That relationship could be a nightmare novel within itself. And I may do like a hour long timeline of that relationship. That was truly a nightmare. And I mean, it was, looking back, it was my fault for staying in it. But you can't fix people that don't want to fix themselves, right? And I learned a very hard lesson. I talked about financially in a previous video, but there's a lot that goes into that. Maybe I'll deep dive into that. It'd be good to talk about. But that's a whole other story. So like heroin and nowadays fentanyl, it's just really affecting people, gripping people, man. When it grips people, it just puts a hold on them, you know? I remember when I was 14, 15, a slight amount of time before my brother died, maybe 2-3 years. I remember sitting on the couch and my sister and my mom were talking about my brother. And my sister looked at me and I was like, what are you guys talking about? And your brother's a junkie. And like at the time, I vaguely knew what that meant. And I'm like, what do you mean, a junkie? And she expressed like he's a heroin addict. I was like, what do you mean? Like he's injecting it? Yeah, he's injecting it. And he never, my brother and my friend, they never brought that stuff around me. And my friend, mainly because of my brother dying, you know, never brought that stuff around me, or even really wasn't even into it until he was like 19, 20. So it was only like a 2-year thing before he died. But yeah, when I found out, I just was like, what, really? Like this hard? That's when I really looked into heroin and online, and like, wow, this is serious stuff, man. And, you know, he'd have track marks. He was a culinary chef too. He had a college degree and everything. But which is weird because, you know, with Chef Ramsay and all that stuff going on years later, like chefs became like sort of a big deal. So he was sort of before his time with that. But he'd have track marks, and like he was in rehab. I don't know how many times. It worked slightly. Alexa, turn off the alarm. But the group of friends he was around, he'd get right back into it so quick. You know, people, places, and things, they say. Yeah, that was tough. Both of those losses were tough. My ex was tough, you know, dealing with her addictions. But yeah, my best friend, I remember being at house parties. I've been around like every drug under the sun. I just never used them. You know, I was just heavy into drinking, as people know. You know, I've smoked my fair share of marijuana years ago. But I'd be at parties, and I remember one time people showed up with dope. And my buddy that died of a heroin overdose was, yo, let's leave. Let's get out of here. We left. To my knowledge, he was not using then. He didn't even touch it. But he knew what I went through with my brother, and he was like, yo, let's get out of here, right? That same friend, not even a few years later, you know, I remember him telling me he was using, and he was like he thought it felt good to like throw up while he was using it. And I'm thinking like, this is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. And he knew not to bring it around me. But I don't know if he started with sniffing. I think he did. And then, you know, once they inject, that's when it really grips them, I guess. The nightmare stories you hear are always related to intravenous use. I remember him talking about throwing up and doing it, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? And he knew I had a zero tolerance for it. And he only really last like year of his life, I hung out with him at a house party. I don't think he was using, he was clean. And then a year later, he came up to visit and partied again. We drank. Like last time I saw him, we drank hard. And our saying was always, let's get so drunk we can't remember our names. And that was like the last text I got from him on my old phone. I kept those texts. Might still even be in that phone. That was 2009. Yeah, it's long ago. So that was what he said. Let's get so drunk we don't remember our names. I look at that text quite a bit. And I have video of him from that day. I was filming a YouTube video. It was stupid. I was spraying Axe in my mouth, being a degenerate. But he's in the video. That's the last time I saw him. Then he went to jail for he was stealing. And then he got out several months later. And then within a month or two is when it all happened and he passed away. But yeah, he was living a rough lifestyle, so like a lot of people didn't want much to do with him at that time when he was not. But yeah, I remember partying with him. We had a fun night, and then I fed him the next day, and then ended up leaving. But that is what it is. That's the way it went down. I wish every day I could go back and talk to both of them. Weird when you dream about these people. It's like, if you've lost a loved one or like a friend and you dream about them, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like when you're dreaming about them, it's almost like you go back to that time frame and you're talking to them directly, like they're actually there. How your brain remembers them. It's really odd. I've talked to numerous, both of them in my dreams. It's almost like they're alive. When I wake up, I almost forget they're passed away for a bit. You know what I'm talking about. But the pain never goes away. You just learn to live with it a little bit more. And this might sound messed up. Like my brother's death date, I don't remember. Like I vaguely remember the month, but I don't remember which day he passed away. And like some of my family like brings that up and like they want to think of him on that day. I sort of tend to block it out. I don't know if it's like a PTSD type thing, but I don't remember the day he passed away. And when it's brought up, I sort of just like avoid it at all costs. I don't know why. I just don't like thinking about that day. I don't want to memorize. I think it was in March, which is my birthday month and his birthday month. So like, I do not know the day. I might sound messed up. It's just the way I cope. I don't want to think about it on that day. Some people like to, remember people on the day they passed. And that's just one of my things. I don't know. Not saying it's good, but yeah. It's just crazy to think my best friend was only 20 in his early 20s. Such a long life to live, and now here I am 35. I often wonder where, these people would be in their life if they were still alive. My brother could have a family, could have nephews or nieces, And I was a young teen when he passed, and he was older than me, so he had a good like 8 years on me, I think. Around about there. 6 to 8 years. So like when he was a teen, I wasn't even a teen yet. I was just a little kid, so he didn't hang out with me. And then when he was in, his drinking age, I was once again 13, 14. So by the time I was able to start like partying and hanging out with him, like besides family stuff and like little brother stuff, I never once partied with him or was around drugs or anything. But like I didn't even have that time to like vibe with my brother on that level, like partying, and I'm sure I would have if he was alive when I hit, I was just starting to do the house party thing around 16, 15. And like, I often think of all the times I would have had just doing things with him, adult things. But that's neither here nor there now. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know what else to really say. I just wanted to make a relatable video to anyone who's lost a loved one to drug or substance. Like, I'm here. I feel your pain. Absolutely terrible. It's affected my sister, my mother, the entire family on a whole other level, My sister found my brother, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. It affected her. It affected her pretty harshly, long term. And she's pretty emotionally strong. And when I look back, I feel like there's a reason she's the one who had to go through that. Because of her being so mentally strong, I think she was the one that could withstand it. Yeah, no one should have to go through that. Will this video get released? I don't know. I think I will, because I'm getting more open on here, and I feel like I should share this, and I've never really talked about it like this. It's always just been like, if someone's like, oh, I lost so-and-so to drugs, I would bring up my brother, and that'd be that. Or if like someone's talking about heroin or like how it's affected people, I'll bring him up and be like, oh, I lost a brother to an overdose, Oh, wow, And there have been a lot of people that have passed since to the same drug, especially fentanyl. Fentanyl wasn't around when my brother and best friend were using. But fentanyl is even worse. And just... yeah, literally a year ago, two girls from my high school passed away. And there's been numerous that have passed in the past 10, 12 years to this drug. Terrible. I couldn't fathom even doing it or trying it. And sometimes I credit my brother to saving me, because I've been around these drugs, man, and I just would not touch anything. I won't even touch coke. I'd probably love it, spend my money on it, and it would probably mess me up. So I don't know what it feels like. I don't mess with it, you know what I mean? But my brother passing, would I have done harder drugs? I don't know. He served me a life lesson early on to not touch the stuff, because I saw what it did to him. I don't know where I'd be if those circumstances didn't happen. I don't know where I'd be. Oh. Would I have been around it more? Would my friends have brought it around me more, knowing, if I didn't have that zero tolerance for it because of my brother, things could have been drastically different. He may have saved my life. I mean, I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, thanks for listening. Not much else to say besides, you'll never stop grieving. Those two individuals, when I used to drink, when I was actively drinking sometimes when I went down a thought loop on those two, man, it was tough. Tears would flow, and when you're drinking, you get really emotional, and like, all I wanted was just to have them back for a brief time to talk to them, And it is what it is. Take it easy.